I have a concern about, I was watching something today and it just struck up this old story inside of me. And I've seen it multiple times on different like paternity courts and different situations where people go into court, legal courts on TV. And it really bothers me sometimes because, people always think that the person who's being victimized should have the better attitude. Like they should be the one who suck it up and get over it. Once everything supposedly quote unquote be smoothed out, they should have the attitude like, okay, you were proven right, so everybody needs to just accept the fact that you were proven right. But the main concern is these situations where a story, friend of mine was married to a man, and the man was killed in an accident. Now, during the marriage, the family act like they were so taken with the woman, and they liked that union and they were so happy that they were together. But there was some difficulties, and the couple were separated actually when the man actually got into the accident, and he was in the hospital, and someone called the wife and told her, hey, your husband has been in an accident. So the wife shows up to the hospital, and there's a ton of people out there who care about the man. The wife, the mother's there and everybody's there, and so the wife goes to the emergency room and requests to see the husband, and she's told she's not on the list. So how is it that his wife is not on the list? And so then the wife goes to the mom and say, hey, they won't let me go back there to see him because they say I'm not on the list. And the mom goes and says, yeah, this is his wife, So then the man let her back there to see the man. And, the man, leaves the ER and stays in the hospital for maybe about 30 days. And the family, the wife goes to see him in intensive care, and about 3 days in, the husband's auntie comes to the wife when she goes up there on this particular day to visit the man and tells her the mother doesn't want her to come back to the hospital to see her son anymore. And now, mind you, this is her husband, and she has a child for this man that's 3 years old, okay? And so his mom has now taken over the responsibility of what happens to him and has the nerves to tell the wife she can't come back up there. And her rationale to the wife, believe it or not, was because you're making his girlfriend uncomfortable. And so the wife says, well, if that was my child laying in a hospital bed fighting for their life, and I thought someone presence was causing my child to not have a fighting chance, I wouldn't want them up there either. So with that being said, since his mother doesn't want my presence, I won't come back. And so the aunt says, well, we'll call you and let you know what happened and keep you abrupt to his condition. And so the wife smiled and she got on the elevator and she left. But what the aunt needed a mother or the current girlfriend knew, on her way up to visit the man, there was another young lady on the elevator with her, with a man who was friends with the man. And the young lady says, I just love him so much and I want to go see him, and they may question who I am. And the guy said, nah, you just play it off like you with me and you my old lady or my sister, and nobody will never know. So you hear this prior to this, and then you get up and then you're being asked not to come back. And so things are accumulating in your head, and all that woman could think about was, I got a 3-year-old child for this man who, if he dies, she won't know her father, and no one is taking that child into consideration. everybody is only thinking about their feelings and their emotions. And a mom has trumped everybody because that's my child. Grown man, but that's her child. So time goes on and the young man dies. About 30 days later, he dies. And the mom calls because when she goes to try to set up funeral arrangements and all these other things, she finds out that she meets stumbling blocks. Because you know why? The law recognizes the wife. So now you want to talk to the wife that you ran away. You want to see the grandchild that you closed out on the last couple of days of her father's life. You know, whatever it was, she was owed that, but you took those things from her. And so the family then says, well, we need you. We need you to come and help us with the funeral arrangements. We need you to be at the funeral. You know, the pastor said he won't bury him in the church if his wife isn't there. And so nobody seems to understand at that moment how that woman feels. You know, like, now that you need me, you want to talk to me. Now that you need me, I'm important now. But look what you took from me. But through all this, now everybody is looking at that woman and expecting her to be the bigger person, expecting her to allow her child to see the grandmother, and expecting her to show up like the doting wife to the funeral because the preacher won't bury the son in the church unless his wife is there. His wife is supposed to forget all the pain that she's been caused, all the other things that have transpired during this time. Oh, and wait, it just don't end there. So the wife agrees to go to the funeral and you know, try to work it out. You know, she decides to be the bigger person, and she goes and she said, you know, she has to get her hair fixed. And she's been going to the same hairdresser for years. So she goes in there and she's sitting there getting her hair fixed, and this lady walks in, and it's the lady who's fixing the wife hair. It's her mother. So her mother walks in and say, I need you to kind of touch up my hair today because I'm going to a funeral. And she says, you going to a funeral? Who funeral are you going to? She said, Relly's, you know. And she said, who is that? You know, and she says, oh, you know, the guy that I've been messing with for a long time. And she says, he was killed. Where he come from? She said, yeah, you know, the one that was killed recently in an accident, you know, the accident. And she's like trying to cut the mama off because it's the woman's husband whose hair she's doing. So I say this to say, you know, in relationships, when you move on past all these things, people always expect the person that has endured so much in these relationships to be the bigger person. And I watch how these women, you know, when their son died, and these women trying to say, well, this is his child, and they drag him through paternity court, and it comes out to be, you know, they're saying all these ugly, hateful things. They write them out the obituary and all this ugliness. And then when it's proven that that's the man's child, they turn around and expect that woman just to say, oh, I'm okay with all the stuff you did to me. Y'all can just have the baby and see the baby, and I welcome y'all back into my life. And I just hate that narrative. We go through this narrative that a person has to suffer, but the victim has to be the one that always be the bigger person. And I just don't get that. And that really, really bothers me.
I mean, just to touch on what you just said at the end right there, it really boils down to the child. Because if you are doing things out of anger because they did it to you, they did something to you, then the child becomes the victim from both of y'all. Because everybody has a right to know who their parents is and to get educated or have the relationships with their parents or their relatives, or at least get to know them. But if you so upset because what happened over here and happened over there, then, you know, the child loses out.
So once again, you're saying a person that was victimized need to suck it up. They need to be the bigger person.
Well, they don't need to use the kid as a pawn, because there ain't nobody putting a gun in your head and telling you to be around those people. I mean, the only reason you should be is to let your kids say, hey, I'm gonna let them hang with y'all, and I mean,
but why is that necessary? Why isn't it that the families should give grace and do things in decency and order? Put the people in obituary, you know, show open arms, because you don't know what it's going to end up being. And that's just my reason for saying that we all as adults need to place the kids as hierarchy when these situations happen. Let's think about the child and not the adults. But see, when them delivering the blows, they don't think about the child and they don't care about the child mother. It's just hurt her, because you're feeling the pain of the loss of your son or your loved one. So you're attacking someone else and not giving them any grace. But now you turn around, and when the situation is all on the table and it doesn't work the way you thought, now you want that person to give you grace. And I'm saying, why is it that we just can't be adults and think about the children from the beginning? Everybody, not after that woman has endured long suffering from the family and the loss of her child's father. Why is it that she now needs to show them grace?
She's not really showing them grace at all. She's just, you have a right to, I mean, if you want to choose to retaliate because what somebody did to you, or, you know, it's an eye for an eye, you know, you have that right. You just can't use the kids, because then the kids become the victim.
Now you're saying retaliation. It's retaliation because that woman no longer wants to be around people that caused her pain.
You don't have to be around them.
That's
the kid
insane.
does. The kid has a right.
The child is still young.
The kid, it doesn't matter. The kid has a right to be around them. A baby can feel the presence of their people.
And a baby also can't feel when someone is doing them something or treating them inappropriately. So a mother's job is to protect her child. So, you know, that part of it, you're still in, just like she protected her child, you have to protect yours. So that means there have to be some interaction, because a mother is not just, how would you hand over your child to a person who has treated you with hostility? Your baby who can't talk for themselves, can't say anything, you're just going, you know, these people have treated you horribly, but you're going to trust that they love your baby so much. Now remember, they stopped her from having a time with her father, the last days of his life. But I'm going to hand that child over to that family.
Well, that'd be just like the family thinking that, hey, man, your side of the family ain't going to treat the child right either. That child has a father. That child is just not yours. You half of the child. The man is the other half.
Yeah, but when he's gone, then the child is solely mine.
It's your child always have his family. You cannot erase that child's family.
And you don't have to erase them, but you don't have to accept when they do things that are negative. And my whole point is, families need to think a little bit more about how they treat a person under those circumstances, because you can't just keep throwing daggers and then when the truth reveals, think that that person is just supposed to lay down and be the good person.
Well, you won't be the good person if you're using the kids as a retaliation tool. Just like if they're using the kid as a retaliation tool, or they're throwing daggers using the kid. You can't use the kid and then think you can walk around on the other end and be right, because you're going to always be wrong.
But it's okay for you to keep the kid away in the last hours of their father's life, because you don't want the mother around, right?
Or keep the kid away. No, it's not right to keep the kid away in no circumstance.
So I'm saying it wasn't even the kid is not the factor, it's the adults not taking into consideration what they're doing to each other. You create these hostile environments, and then you want somebody to then give you grace. And when you didn't have to create that environment in the beginning, it was unnecessary.
It'd be just like if let's just say my sister had a kid and I didn't like her husband. I don't have to deal with her husband. Or if I had a daughter or if I had a son and he had a girlfriend or a baby mama, the baby mama ain't gotta like me. I don't have to like her. I don't have to deal with her. She don't have to deal with me. But if it comes to dealing with her, to involve the kids knowing their side of the family, well, that's a responsibility of mine. Because it's my responsibility to give that kid what they deserve, and they deserve to know the other half of their family. You can't come out on the other end you can't come out saying what somebody done to you, because then you're going to be irresponsible. You're starting to put your emotions over what's right.
Just like they put their emotion over what's right.
But
that's what I'm saying. So you once again, you're siding with the person who the damage was being done. We're not talking about the kids. So where was the responsibility of the person who caused the damage? Because that was unnecessary. You liked the woman up until your son was hurt and in a decapacitated state. You were fine with the woman until that happened.
So that's why it's difficult with women, because you can't see past your feelings to do what's right. You're worried about what they done to you, and what ends up happening is it affects what the kid do. And I'm not saying that they right at all. I'm not saying that they right, but I'm telling you, just because they're not right don't give you the reason to be not right also. It doesn't give you the license to do the wrong thing just because they did the wrong thing to you.
But it doesn't matter whether it gives you the license or not. I just think that people need to take into consideration in these incidents how they behave before they're asking somebody else to now understand why they behave in that manner. You are responsible for your own behaviors, because that woman could have just turned around because she knew she was the wife and ran everybody from up there, because by law she had all the rights, but she humbly walked away. So how many times does she have to humble herself for people who are showing hatred to her for no reason? That just doesn't make sense. That's just like when we say, these ride or die women. A man want a woman that's a ride or die woman. A woman who gonna go through the fire with him. Why does a person have to suffer to receive the best of you? To receive you in your best form? That's crazy to me. Why can't you be that person when you meet that person? Why can't you be the stand-up person, or why can't you take the high road when situations happen and be a good person from the beginning? And then none of that will be. Everything will fall in order. I'm just saying that people need to take into consideration their actions before they're expecting somebody else to react.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, you saying that the wife, what term you said the family didn't want the wife there because the girlfriend would get mad. So obviously they were separated. Okay, so I guess way the family is looking at it, would he want the wife up there? Because what was the issue? Because to be honest with you, some men don't even want to see their ex-wife. Like, they don't want to have nothing to do with their ex-wife. Not to saying they wouldn't want to have something to do. And that could have been how he presented it to the family. Like, man, she died, blah, blah, blah. Now, whether it was true or whether it was not true, they people tend to curve a story and their side of the story the way they want to curve it. But he could have told the family that and painted a picture that, and he's not there to speak for or defend the ex-wife or the wife at the moment. So, he could have did that.
And so now that goes back to what you just said. So at that time, why wasn't the grandmother thinking of her 3-year-old granddaughter having access to her father? So she was so mad, even if he said that, why didn't she take the bigger picture and say, I know my son said that he can't speak, so I'm making decisions for him, and his child needs to have access to him. So with that being said, I am going to allow it because his child needs to have access to him. Because see, now she wants the woman to allow her to have access to that child. So you rob that child of her daddy's last days on life. So she wasn't big enough to see past that. So now why should the woman be big enough to see past
How old was the child?
3.
I don't remember much of 3.
It's still
that's
not for us to dictate what a child can and cannot. Remember, that was her father, and whatever it was, he lived 30 days that she did not get to have around him. So they took it from her. They didn't really take anything from the woman. They took it from the child. So regardless, that's what I'm saying. People need to think about their actions in these situations and like you say, and get out of their emotions and say, you know what? Let me do things in decency and order until we can work this all out. Because you know what all comes at the end of that? They worry about the money. They worry about the social security checks. They worry about everything else except the children. And then once all that is settled and they're wrong, now it's, oh, that's a part of my son. Don't take the only part of my son away from me.
A lot of times, though, when people go through things like this, you know, traumatic, especially death, you know, you don't never know how people are going to respond.
Correct.
I mean, they looking for somebody to blame, really. They're really looking for, especially when it's just like a accident, you know, and there's nobody really to blame. It's just they're looking for somebody to blame. They just is. You know, I mean.
Yep. But I just, you know, I think I want to raise awareness, and I told the story, which is a true story, in a situation so that for ladies who are going through this, I want them to know, because the woman did humble herself and allow the family to be a part of the child life, that you do have to humble yourself in those circumstances. But believe me, there are people who out here who understand how it feels, and it's hard. But humble yourself. Take that hardness out of your heart. And for the people who are throwing the daggers, they need to understand that when all of this in and it's all said and done, the only thing that matters is the child and family. So maybe give a person a little bit more grace when, like what you said, you don't know the whole story. You don't know the whole story. You just know the side of the story that the man brings you. So now that he can't talk, he's not here to speak for himself. You don't know how he was when he was with that woman. You don't know if he was still sneaking around with that woman. You don't know what love they had.
That's true.
So you need to show grace and stay out of that part of it. Stay out of the relationship part and deal with what's at hand. The kid knowing the other side of their family. That's it. Just give that kind of respect.
Yeah, it gets tough when you start dealing with exes and separation and new girlfriends, and now the person can't speak. It really get. I mean, like some wives just they wouldn't even kill them. They'd be like, I ain't going up there. Like, I don't want to have nothing to deal with. But if it's some money involved, they gonna come. They gonna show up.
Well, you know.
Just especially if it's a lot of money. They gonna come up there then, but some people don't even want to be bothered.
Well, you know, when you have a 3-year-old child as a mother, that child not having a father, if that's the first your heart can see is a check, then that's a problem with you already, and maybe, you know, you might need to be treated that way. But to me, any mother that loves her child and his or her father is fighting for their life, you know, your first thing should be, your thought should be, my child may be without their father, and all I want to do is make sure their father is okay, because every child should have the opportunity to know their father, and it's very difficult when a child father is taken away from them at such a young age, you know, and all they have is the stories and the memories of the family and the mother.
Yeah, that's tough.
So
that's tough, especially when you have, like you say, it's a child. It might be fatherless, but you know, the family can act crazy in these kind of situations. I mean, really could get crazy. That's why I don't like going around them when, you know, there's, you know, death or, you know, possible death, because people start acting crazy. You just pull up in the yard and park your car wrong, they'll come out there and start cursing you out and all that crazy stuff. So I kind of, hey.
Yeah, we need to be more aware of that and mindful of that, because at the end, all it does is hurt the children. And believe it or not, someday the children will find out what you put their parent through, and it's just so unfair to them, because now their emotions get involved in that, and we shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
We need to learn how to get along. We are all hurting. Everybody takes a loss.
Yeah, that's just like asking people to be responsible.
Well, let's hope they can.